Happy 4th of July, San Antonio Spurs fans. Wasn't planning on making a video today, but these trade rumors just won't stop.
Go, Spurs, go, 'cause the Giants stay.
What is up, San Antonio Spurs fans? Welcome to TSR Sports. Hope you're having a great holiday. Saw some stuff on Lauri Markkanen this morning. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to cover that. We'll cover that second because Pounding the Rock covered DeMar DeRozan first, and I think the DeRozan one's not likely, so we want to talk about that. And then we're going to jump into the Markkanen stuff, which just, if it's true, let's just get into the article from Pounding the Rock first. DeMar DeRozan. The Spurs might be taking a look at the star wing now that his market value seems low. We've talked about DeRozan before on the channel, about him coming back, and I think most of you leans more to the no than the yes, but let's get into this. The only star out there is DeMar DeRozan, who has faced a dry market for his talents. A few teams have been rumored to be interested in him, and now we can add the Spurs to the list. Per Barry Jackson, Kings have talked to Bulls about DeRozan sign and trade per source. Spurs also know another possibility. Despite DeRozan's interest in Miami, the Heat are not in a position to give him what he's seeking at this time. Heat will hope opportunity on some player it wants arises this summer. Who's Barry Jackson? He's a veteran reporter from South Florida area who's been known to have sources within the Heat's organization, so his information can't be dismissed outright even if he's not a habitual newsbreaker. Why this makes sense for the Spurs to bring DeMar DeRozan back. The Spurs are one of the few teams out there with money to offer. Cha-ching, straight cash, homie. Whether they operate below or above the cap. They have a pass with DeRozan. He played 3 years here for us. It might be more interesting in winning now than we previously assumed. DeRozan would provide a more reliable scoring option in the perimeter to complement Victor Wembanyama inside and could take over in the clutch. But Wemby looking great in the Olympics. Paul and DeRozan would be two great mentors for Stephon Castle, and DeRozan shouldn't be particularly expensive or picky now that most teams can only offer him the mid-level exception. Even if the fit isn't ideal, talent is talent, and DeRozan could potentially be flipped later. So we've talked about this on the channel a little bit. Could they bring DeRozan in? How to be a mentor, starter, and then right before the All-Star break, trade him to a contender? Let's not forget that's always an option. Bring these players in that have been in the NBA with, I can't put the words together, veteran NBA players, bringing them in for half a season and then trade them at the All-Star break for future assets. Why it doesn't make sense. DeRozan can't shoot. Well, that's a lot of guys on our team right now, which makes him a terrible fit in the starting lineup next to Jeremy Sohan. And he can't defend, so he can't replace Sohan as a starter. He's still reportedly holding out for a big contract, so signing him outright seems unlikely. And by the rules, sign and trade contracts have to be more than 1 year, which would interfere with our Spurs' rumored plans of having as much cap space as possible for 2025 because of that loaded draft and the multiple picks that we have. The fit in the court is bad. A deal that makes sense for both parties would be too tough to iron out, and DeRozan is probably looking to play for a better team than the young Spurs. I agree with all that. So, a room between the Spurs and DeRozan seems unlikely. The front office has said time and time again they won't skip steps, and bringing in DeMar in a multi-year contract would go against those claims. It would. And the fit is just too bad on the court for either DeRozan or the Spurs to convince themselves that this is a pairing that would work well long-term. Pretty much agree with everything there. I don't see it happening. We gave DeRozan a shot. He had his 3-year run here, 1 playoff appearance, 2 play-in appearances, I believe, as well. Way north of 30. Is he way north of 30? 33, 34? Yeah, he's definitely north of 30. Time to move on. That being said, the other news that really had me going, wow, was the Lauri Markkanen news. So let's first talk about Lauri a little bit. Lauri, I always screw up his first name. My apologies. We did a poll on this channel to get a feed of where our Spurs community was, and about 3,500 plus of you answered that if the Spurs were to make a trade for Lauri Markkanen, 72% of you said yes. 20% no, but 72% yes. So there's certainly a very strong interest to team him up with Wemby. And what I caught this morning was a tweet from Evan Sidery, verified user on X, covers the NBA for Forbes Sports. And he had to say, the Kings, our Spurs, and the Warriors, who we have talked about on this channel, the Warriors are certainly a player in the market for Lauri Markkanen, all have significant trade offers on the table to the Jazz for Lauri Markkanen. Utah is mulling over these packages as they decide whether they will ultimately move Markkanen or not. Take this with a grain of salt. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but there's a lot of analysis and websites saying that we're interested in obtaining Markkanen, so a trade offer being out doesn't shock me. But this is where I wanted to talk to you, Spurs fans. And where I kind of want to dig into this, because I've kind of been on the, no, let's not do this, but if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. I can't stop it. So if we're to give up something for Markkanen, what will we give up? I could see Zach Collins being the player. I know a lot of people are going to say Kellman. I think Zach would be a player the Spurs try to unload that contract on and the Jazz if possible. It's a salary match for the most part. Zach makes $17.5 million next season. Lowry makes 18, so it's apples and apples. As far as trading picks, we're going to have to trade a lot of first rounders. I feel like we're going to have to trade at least 4 first rounders and maybe some second rounders. We have so many second rounders, giving up some of those is not going to hurt. So what I would do, first off, I would not trade any of our high 2025 picks. That's probably going to be the Spurs pick, probably going to be a lottery team again. We're not trading the Atlanta one. Who the heck knows what's going to happen over there? And I would keep the Chicago top 10 protected pick. If they traded that, I wouldn't be totally upset, but I think you got to keep those Spurs and Atlanta picks no matter what. If I was running things, and maybe this isn't enough from TSR Sports, old GM cheapo frugal over here, but I would give up the 2025 Charlotte first round pick, which is lottery protected, which if I'd be shocked if that conveys into a first round pick. I seriously doubt it. I would give Utah back their 2026 second round pick. I forgot we had that. And I pulled this pickup list from, was it FanSport? It was one website, so hopefully it's mostly up to date. It looks like some sites are a little behind with those recent Timberwolves picks. But overall, it seems like it's fairly accurate. And we have a bunch of picks that we can always swap this pick out for that one. I would give up the 2027 Atlanta first round pick that's unprotected. I think we have to give them something that's unprotected. I would start there. Give them Minnesota's 2028 second round pick that we obtained somewhere. I would give the Spurs first round pick in 2029 and 31, but I would put protection on it. Top 4 protected. Not crazy protected, but top 4 protected. We should be a perennial playoff team and contender at that point. So they should be late picks, anywhere between 25 and up. So not really worried about losing those. And then we have a second round pick from Cleveland way out in 2030. Let's give that up too. So 4 first rounders, 3 second rounders. I have a feeling those picks are going to be a little bit better, but I have a feeling at least 4 round picks is going to be the buying price. Maybe even 5 first round picks. Maybe we throw in, I don't know. We got a lot of them. Do they want the Timberwolves pick way out in, was it 2030 or 31? And then if this does happen, got to brainstorm a little bit. What's our starting lineup look like? I could see it being Wemby, Lowry, Sohan, Devin, and CP3 or CP0 or whatever. If Kelvin's here at the start of the season, who's keeping number 3? We did a poll on that. Still up. Feel free to vote on that. And that gives us that gives us a huge starting front court. Both Wemby and Lowry, 7 foot. Jeremy's maybe no short guy at the small forward spot. He would be the weakest shooter out there, but he'd be the only weak shooter. We'd have a lot of floor spacers with everybody else. So that would make us a playoff team for sure, I think, with that starting lineup. As far as the bench, I think that's where things start to become much more hazy, much more cloudy. Who's primary off the bench? I think the way Mamu played last season and closed out this season, he's going to be a guy that's certainly going to come off. Kelvin, obviously, coming off the bench. Castle now coming off the bench, not in the starting lineup. And then Trey Jones would be our backup point guard. And I can see Castle kind of doing the Derek White role where he's sharing playmaking duties. But then it also raises one more question as we're trying to figure out rotations. What happens with the minutes with some of our younger players that we've been trying to develop? City Sissoko. I've seen his name come up on the channel. TSR, do you think he can crack the rotation? If we bring in another vet like this, it's going to be tough. He's in year number 2. If CP3 is not going to play the whole season, we know he's going to miss time here and there. It's going to happen. So if Paul gets injured, could he boost Stefan or Trey to the starting lineup, and then City cracks his way into the rotation there? Maybe. But what about Blake Wesley and Malachi Branham? I know a lot of you are ready to give up on Branham. He's a horrible defender. He's still young. He was a first-round pick 2 years ago. I don't want to see us give up on a majority of that draft class already. And if you somehow forgot, the draft class from 22 is Jeremy Sohan, Blake Wesley, and Malachi Branham. I actually think it was the other way around. Branham was drafted before Blake, I believe. They're young. They're first-round picks. I think we at least got to give them time this year, some kind of playing time to see if they are fit to stay here long-term. Or after year 3, have we seen enough to say, okay, you know what? You're not developing. Malachi, you sucked at defense your first 2 years. You've gotten even worse. You are a liability on the court. Time to move on. The opposite with Blake Wesley. Your offense just is not coming along. You can't shoot to save your life. Time to move on. But I don't want to give up after only 2 years. So Spurs got a lot of tough decisions. And just as a fan, you guys see me in a lot of these videos. It feels like my head's about to explode because I'm like, what happens if this happens and this happens? Look, I'm part of the small crowd that doesn't want Lauri Markkanen. Let me rephrase that. Not that I don't want him. All right, let me back that statement up. Not that I don't want him. I'm just concerned just how much we're going to give up for him. And he's got his injury history. That concerns me. He's on the last year of his contract. I assume if we brought him over, he would re-sign, but he's also going to re-sign for a pretty large contract of, with his time in the NBA, is he going to be getting like what, $35 million a year, something like that? We've already got Devon on the books for 30. When Wemby's contract comes up for renegotiation, he's re-upping. That's going to be a big contract. Plus these first-round picks, Stephon Castle, the 2025 picks. I kind of see where I'm going with this. So I think that's going to be the biggest issue. Is at some point we're going to be way over the cap. And I know there's plenty of other teams that are way over the cap, but those are big markets. We're not going to be the type of team that's paying taxes left and right and way over the cap. That's just not happening. That's not the Spurs. It's going to be very interesting to see how the rest of this offseason plays out. And it'll also be very interesting to see what happens in the Summer League. I'll be live with Miss TSR Sports for Stefan. We'll be live. We're a community. We'll be live for Stephon Castle's debut Saturday night against the Hornets. I'm hoping Tijon Saloon will play. I saw he had a laceration on his knee, so really hoping to see him play with the Hornets. But really excited to see Castle in a Spurs uniform. Miss TSR has already ordered a Castle uniform, so she's all in, and I'm excited to see just what happened. I can't tell you guys. For those of you who've been here long enough, or maybe not, you did just join the channel, the Spurs have only been a losing team in this channel's existence. We started in April 2019, caught 2 Spurs playoff games against Denver. They lost them both. But as far as full coverage with the Spurs, streaming most of the games live, they've only been a losing team. They haven't had direction. We kind of thought, all right, DeMar DeRozan, maybe not. DeJounte, maybe not. Or DeJounte and Derek, and then Keldon will be, maybe not. And now we got Wemby. We finally have direction. Something I'm waiting for my New York Giants to have, by the way. But finally have direction with the Spurs. Wemby's the franchise, and we're building around him. And there's hope now. Not saying that felt the Spurs were hopeless the past 5 years, but I certainly didn't look at the roster and say, we're a championship team in the next year, 2 or 3. I was like, there's a lot of work to be done. Now I see the beginnings of, dare I say, a dynasty with Wemby. And the right pieces around him, we will be a contender every year. And just to finally have that feeling again, because I haven't had it in a while as a Spurs fan, but have it as a content creator too, I'm like, wow, it's great. The days of covering live streams and saying, well, just lost a franchise record 18th in a row, or the previous season doing videos, we just lost our 6, those type of videos, or we finished 22-60. I think those days are, the window on those is pretty much shut. I don't see us being a 21 team again in Wemby's career. And it's amazing to share this ride with you, and it's such a joy to cover our team, and I love being part of this community. And that's all I got. So drop a comment down below. Your thoughts. Is this a smoke screen not happen with Lauri, or if he comes in, how do you think that affects our rotation? What do you think the starting lineup is? Who's primary off the bench? What happens to the guys that are seeking minutes, like a Sissoko or a Wesley, et cetera, et cetera? Love to hear what you guys have to say. I thank you all. I'm rambling. Happy 4th of July. Hit the Something Like Sports channel and subscribe and become part of Ross and Spurs community. I thank you all, and as always, go Spurs go.
And then you makes it to Wemby.